begins with an ordinary evening in a small coastal barangay in Cebu, where 8-year-old Eli sits on the bamboo floor of their tiny house, humming quietly while his mother, Mara, rests on an old wooden bed behind him. The humid air is thick, carrying the smell of rain that has been threatening to fall all day. Their home is simple, patched together over the years, but it has always been filled with music, Mara's gentle lullabies and Eli's soft humming. That night, however, the air feels different. Mara has battled heart failure for years, but recently she has been growing weaker, moving slower, and taking deeper breaths just to stay upright. Eli watches her carefully, always alert, always afraid something might happen when he is the only one with her. When the storm finally breaks, heavy rain slaps the tin roof and lightning flashes across the sky, turning everything white for a moment. And then Eli hears it, a sound that doesn't belong. Mara gasps for air, her chest rising fast and then falling too still. Eli rushes to her side, his hands shaking violently as he tries to wake her, calling her name again and again. The room is filled with thunder, but to him it feels silent, completely empty except for the terror crushing his chest. He grabs an old phone, but there is no signal, and the nearest hospital is hours away on dark, flooded roads. In pure fear, the boy does the only thing his heart understands. He crawls onto the bed beside her and begins to sing. He sings the lullaby she used to sing to him when he was little, the one she whispered during blackouts, fevers, and nights when they had nothing but each other. His voice trembles at first, cracking from tears, but he keeps going. The melody wobbles through the room, mixing with thunder and wind, and Eli closes his eyes, pressing his forehead against his mother's shoulder as if he could force life back into her. Something strange happens. Her fingers twitch slightly, her breathing shallow but moving. Eli doesn't notice at first, he only sings harder, louder, begging her through the words to come back. Then her chest rises again, slowly, painfully, and Eli stops singing mid-note, staring in disbelief. Mara's eyes flutter open, unfocused but alive, and the boy breaks down, hugging her, sobbing into her hair. When help arrives the next morning, neighbors whisper about what they think happened. Some say it was God. Some say the child has a gift. Doctors can't explain how a failing heart restarted without medical intervention. All Eli knows is that he sang because he had nothing else, and somehow it brought his mother back. Overnight, he becomes the little boy who did the impossible. Episode 2 begins with reporters and curious neighbors gathering outside their small home, each one wanting to hear the story from the miracle boy of Cebu. Eli, still confused by the sudden attention, hides behind his mother as cameras flash and microphones push toward him. He never wanted to be famous, he only wanted the nightmare to end. But the world is hungry for miracles, and his story spreads across local radio, then television, and eventually online. Hospitals invite him to visit patients, churches ask him to sing for their congregations, and strangers send letters begging him to perform for sick relatives. Eli becomes a symbol of hope without understanding why. His mother, still recovering, tries to shield him from the overwhelming pressure, but she cannot stop the wave of expectations crashing over their lives. Everywhere they go, someone tells Eli he has a healing voice, a supernatural gift, a purpose bigger than himself. At school, classmates treat him differently, some with admiration, others with envy, and teachers look at him like he is something fragile and otherworldly. Eli struggles with the idea that people expect him to fix things he does not understand. He begins to worry every time he sings, fearing one wrong note might disappoint someone or, worse, hurt them. The weight grows heavier each week. Meanwhile, Mara watches silently, proud of her son yet terrified for him. She knows the world can be cruel to children who carry extraordinary expectations. She sees the tiredness in his eyes after every performance, the fear hiding behind his forced smile. One night, after a long day of visitors wanting to hear the voice that saved his mother, Eli curls up beside her and whispers that he is scared people will be angry if he cannot help them. Mara holds him close and tells him no one was saved by magic, it was love and timing, nothing more, but Eli is too young to fully understand. Fame creeps into their quiet lives, changing everything, and Eli begins to wonder whether the miracle people celebrate was really a blessing, or a burden that is slowly stealing his childhood. Continues as Eli grows a little older, now around 9 or 10, and his life has become anything but normal. Every week, more people show up outside their home, some carrying candles, some carrying pictures of sick relatives, and some carrying hopes that seem too heavy for a child to hold. He performs at local charity events, barangay celebrations, and church gatherings, and each time someone inevitably asks if he can sing for someone who is ill. Eli never knows how to say no. Even when he is tired, even when he wants to play outside like other children, he steps forward and sings because the world has convinced him that his voice can save lives. His mother, though grateful to still be with him, watches with growing concern as strangers project their desperation onto her son, turning him into something he never asked to be. One day, Eli is brought into a hospital room in Cebu City to sing for a 6-year-old girl named Althea, who has a severe respiratory illness. Her parents kneel beside the bed, begging him with tears in their eyes. Eli feels the familiar knot of pressure in his stomach. He doesn't understand medicine, he doesn't know if singing helps anyone at all, but every face in the room looks at him like he is their last hope. He closes his eyes and begins to sing the only song he knows brings him courage, his mother's lullaby. His voice fills the room, small but steady, and the entire ward grows silent. Nurses pause, doctors watch, and the girl's breathing softens, her heart rate stabilizes slightly, and everyone gasps as if witnessing another miracle. The doctors can't explain the sudden improvement, and before Eli can even process what happened, the story spreads across social media: "Miracle Boy helps sick child recover." Within months, invitations arrive from Manila, Singapore, and even Los Angeles, all asking him to perform. Eli's story becomes global, featured on talk shows and online interviews where hosts introduce him as the boy with the healing voice. But as his fame grows, so does the emotional toll. Eli begins to feel fear every time he steps onto a stage, fear that he will disappoint someone, that he will fail to help, or that the illusion of his gift will crumble. His mother tries to guide him, reminding him that he is only human, but even she cannot stop the wave of expectations the world has built around him. At night, Eli lies awake wondering why people believe so strongly in him. Was the miracle real? Or was it just a coincidence the world turned into a legend? The question follows him everywhere he goes. His life becomes a battle between his own doubts and the hope people insist he carries. By the time he turns 12, Eli is known in many countries, but deep inside he feels more trapped than blessed, afraid that the moment he cannot perform, the world will turn its back on him. Episode 4 begins with Eli at 18, standing on a large stage with thousands of fans cheering his name. He has grown taller, his face sharper, but his eyes still hold the same quiet sadness he carried as a child. Years of performing, traveling, and emotional pressure have worn him down. His voice, once pure and bright, now cracks under strain. During one performance, he tries to reach a high note he has sung hundreds of times before, but his voice breaks completely, the sound dissolving into a painful silence. The audience gasps, murmuring in confusion as Eli freezes, unable to continue. Backstage, he collapses onto a chair, clutching his throat, terrified. His mother rushes to him, and within hours they are sitting in a clinic, waiting for the doctor to explain the results of his vocal cord examination. The verdict is devastating. Eli has severe vocal cord damage from years of overuse, emotional stress, and constant pressure to perform. The doctor explains that he must stop singing immediately and rest his voice for months, possibly longer. If he pushes himself further, he could lose his voice permanently. Eli feels his world collapse. For years, he believed his voice was the one thing that made him valuable, the one thing people loved him for. Without it, who was he? His career stalls instantly. Concerts are cancelled, interviews pulled, and the world that once celebrated him begins to move on. Online fans argue about whether he is still the miracle boy, or if he was just a childhood spectacle. Eli withdraws from public life, unable to face the disappointment he imagines in people's eyes. He moves back to Cebu, hoping to live quietly, but even there, people still recognize him. Some ask him to sing despite his injury, assuming a miracle can't be limited by medical facts. Others pity him, which only deepens his shame. Eli begins avoiding crowds, avoiding conversations, and avoiding mirrors. His identity, once built around hope, now feels like a burden he cannot escape. His mother does her best to comfort him, reminding him that his worth was never in his voice. But for the first time, Eli realizes the world never wanted him, they wanted the miracle. As he watches his career collapse, He begins to question whether the miracle that made him famous was the same force that ultimately broke him. Begins with Eli at 23, living a much quieter life than the one the world remembers. He no longer performs, no longer grants interviews, and rarely sings even to himself. His vocal cords are still fragile, and although he can talk normally, any attempt to sing triggers pain and strain. Music used to be the center of his life, but now it sits quietly in the background, like a shadow of a childhood he can't fully embrace anymore. He spends most days working simple jobs around Cebu, helping in a small music shop, fixing instruments, and teaching kids basic chords when they ask. He has learned to smile, but deep down he carries the constant ache of feeling like he disappointed the world. More than anything, he fears disappointing his mother, the one person he tried to save and protect his whole life. One afternoon, while preparing a simple dinner, Eli hears something fall hard in the other room. He rushes in and finds his mother collapsed on the floor, her breathing shallow and her eyes unfocused, the same terrifying sight he faced when he was 8 years old. Time freezes. His heart races, and memories crash back like a tidal wave. The storm, the lullaby, the miracle. His hands tremble as he lifts her head gently, calling her name, but she doesn't respond. Eli feels panic unlike anything he has experienced since childhood. He tries to reach for his phone but realizes calling an ambulance won't get her help fast enough. He presses his forehead to hers, tears falling uncontrollably, and in desperation, he tries to sing. The words come out broken. His voice cracks immediately, trembling as if his throat is fighting him. He tries pushing harder, forcing the lullaby out, but every note hurts like fire. His vocal cords simply can't do what they once could. Eli keeps trying, voice shaking, breath struggling, but nothing sounds right. Nothing sounds like the song that once pulled her back from the edge. His mother remains unresponsive, and Eli feels his chest collapse inward, consumed by guilt. For the first time since he lost his singing career, he feels like a failure in the deepest, most personal way possible. The miracle he once became famous for, bringing his mother back, he can no longer repeat. When the ambulance finally arrives, Eli rides with her, holding her hand, whispering apologies that break his heart open. Hours pass in the cold hospital waiting room. Eli sits alone, hands clasped so tightly they shake. He blames himself for not protecting his voice, for not being stronger, for not singing the way he used to. He replays the moment over and over, imagining what would have happened if he could have sung correctly, if his voice hadn't abandoned him. The weight of helplessness crushes him. He wonders if the world was right, if he was meant to be a miracle, not a normal person. And now that he is just a normal person, he fears he has nothing left to offer. When the doctor finally emerges, Eli braces himself for the worst, terrified that his mother slipped away while he stood powerless. Episode 6 begins as Eli hears the doctor say that his mother survived. The relief hits him all at once, overwhelming him so intensely that he nearly collapses to the floor. But the doctor continues with a gentle seriousness. He explains that Mara suffered another heart failure episode, one far more dangerous than the one she had when Eli was a child. She survived not because of anything supernatural, but because she still had just enough heart function left, and because the paramedics arrived quickly. Eli listens silently, then whispers the question that has been haunting him for 15 years. Did my singing ever save her at all? The doctor pauses before answering. He explains that when Eli was 8, Mara's heart had slipped into an arrhythmia, a chaotic rhythm sometimes reversed by sudden emotional or neurological stimulation. The lullaby, sung with the emotional intensity of a terrified child, could have triggered a shock-like response that jump-started her heart. Not a miracle, not magic, just an extremely rare physiological reaction influenced by emotional attachment. Eli feels shaken, not because the miracle is gone, but because it suddenly makes sense. All these years, he believed he had a supernatural power. The world believed it too. But the truth is simpler and deeper. It wasn't his voice alone. It was love, fear, connection, timing, and something profoundly human. When Eli enters his mother's hospital room, she smiles weakly and squeezes his hand. She tells him she heard him trying to sing before everything went dark, and she tells him something he needed to hear for years: you don't owe the world anything. You never did. Eli breaks down, crying into her blankets, releasing years of pressure and guilt. For the first time, he feels free from the identity the world forced on him. He realizes he doesn't need a miracle voice to matter. He doesn't need fame. He just needs to be present, to live honestly, to love without performance. In the weeks that follow, Eli begins teaching music to children in Cebu, not as a miracle worker but as someone who truly understands the emotional power of sound. Kids gather around him, not because they expect healing, but because they feel safe and understood. Eli finds peace in this small, quiet life, one built on truth rather than myth. The world may still remember him as the miracle boy, but he now understands something far more important. The greatest miracle wasn't saving his mother's life. It was learning to live his own.